Okay, thumbs up. Hi, everyone. Hi. My name's Andrea Ambam, and I'm the host of Level Forward's More to Talk About. And basically, when there is a juicy show, such as this one, we seek them out, and we seek to hold conversations afterwards where we can dive deeper into all of the topics and themes, everything that's bubbling up for you right at the top. We want to hold space to dive deeper into them. And today we're talking about the healing power of sisterhood. And we have some incredible artists, writers, culture makers right here on this panel with us to explore the power of sisterhood, the power of interdependence, and talking about mental health candidly. So before we dive in, we have to have our lovely panelists introduce themselves. And Candrice, we have to start with you so the crowd can cheer. If they don't know who you are, they're about to know. So go ahead and tell them.
Hello, I'm Candrice Jones. I am the playwright of Flex. So.
And Mahogany, how about you next? Pass the mic.
I'm Mahogany L. Browne. I'm the poet in residence here at Lincoln Center.
My name is Rachel Cargle. I am an author and an entrepreneur, and so excited to be in this conversation.
So when we were waiting outside in the lobby, I had to tell Rachel and Mahogany to shh, because they were like, I love this. And I was like, wait till we're in front of the people. So now we get to ask the question, what, after watching the show, is up top for you right now? What's resonating the most? What's standing out for you? What do you just want to put into the space before we jump into the conversation? You too, Candrice. I know it changes for you every time you see it.
I'd rather hear from them. I honestly would, yeah.
I'll say, one of my favorite parts of it from my own personal experience was bringing grief into the space. A grief understanding that wasn't rooted in a bit of the tumultuousness of grief that we often understand and see, but there was such joy in the relationship that she had with her conversation with her mother. My mother passed away this past November, and so I am really relishing in the type of relationship that can happen with someone after they pass away. And that showing up meant something to me, so thank you.
Thank you.
I think I love the generosity during the accountability circle. We rarely have those things come to play, not just in our everyday life, but on some kind of screen where you see someone that does the wrong thing, you see everyone who loves them and how they are complicit, right, until they're not. And I loved that complexity. I love the nuance, and I also love the soundtrack. My God, today, double.
So good. I love thinking about the accountability circle and what can happen through grief, right? What can happen after someone passed and the relationship you can have with them, which is really displayed so beautifully in the show. Another thing that resonated for me too, I remember the first time I saw it was just like seeing a sleepover again. I was like, oh yeah! I wanted to text my friends and be like, can we have a sleepover even though we're grown? Can we still do that? We can, right? I think we can. And I think that what I love so much about, we need to. Yes, we need them, literally. And what I love so much about watching Flex and my experience of Flex was it made me realize how few coming of age stories we get that center young Black women. They're very few and far between. And every time I get the chance to experience one of them, I'm like, oh yes, there's the familiarity that I was looking for, searching for, the relatability. And so Candrice, I want to ask you, what was the origin story of the play, of Flex, of these girls coming together?
It's layered. But I would say the origin story would be my high school / college basketball experiences and just my acknowledgement of how coming of age in the 90s In the late 90s, when the WNBA was first announced, being a young woman who lived in a small town, there was a basketball ecosystem, and my family played basketball and my friends played basketball, and just the joy and education, as well as some of the mistakes that my teammates and I made, pretty much, is the wellspring of inspiration for this project. When I went to college, which was 20 minutes away from my hometown, I happened to play basketball against one of my high school rivals. And we would talk shit. And so one day while we were on the bus headed to a game, we were arguing about why our teams would win or lose against one another every year. And she stated, Candrice, the reason why your team never won was because every year someone on your team got pregnant. And I was like, no, that's not true. Because it was such a common thing. It was so common, it was like myopic for me that that it happened because it was such a common conversation. And so that image, even though I wasn't thinking about writing plays yet, I was writing poetry and short stories at that time. That image stayed with me until I started to write flicks. So yeah.
Yeah. The things our high school nemesis revealed to us.
Right. And we're friends to this day, but yeah, it's interesting how that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, Mahogany and Rachel, I'm interested for both of you in your work. Mahogany, Chlorine Sky is a beautiful example of girlhood and of coming of age. And Rachel, in your work and your talkings and understandings about intersectionality and the way you talk about feminism and racial justice and build people's capacity to understand, I'm interested in how your own girlhood and growing up has influenced the way you approach now your writings and your teachings and your cultural influence.
Because you're so eloquent. I just want to hurry up and get it over with. Jeez. I would say Lil Mo is scared. And in her fear, I learned how to let go of the relationships that I thought were perfect. Like the fear of not measuring up, the fear of abandonment, the fear of being laughed at. All of those things, I know the articulation well. And it was because I was writing this YA novel about this young girl who played ball and was really in the shadow of her best friend, but was never in the shadow when she played ball. I had to name the things that made you want to root for her, but also name the things that she could control if she was ready to. But I didn't have that understanding until I stepped back and looked at this character that had a lot to do with me, but also a lot to do with the young women that I happened to teach. So it was twofold.
Yeah.
I grew up as a Black girl in pretty white spaces, and so I think that part of my work, and when I say my work, I mean the writing that I do, but also just the way that I live in the world and what that means as my work, has been reminding myself of myself in spaces where I'm not seen. And I think that with my foundation, the Loveland Foundation, we offer access to free therapy for Black women and girls, and I think that was seeded in me very young, even though I had the opportunity to do it later on, in the sense that I recognized that Black women were always the center of spaces or the bedrock of spaces. And I I often get asked, like, Rachel, why don't you expand this to Black men, or why don't you expand this to other spaces? And I say that I have the understanding that Black women and girls in particular, when we heal, everyone heals. We're the centers of our households, our communities, our organizations, our neighborhoods. And so I feel like the younger girl in me who was surrounded by whiteness often, and who felt like I had to defend so many parts of myself that were real and that were true, I get to honor her in my work now. I often reflect on, in my writing, being in relationship with my younger self, the things that she teaches me, just like we said about sleepovers. Younger us would have told all of us, oh, do you want to hang out after this? Yeah. But something about older us doesn't feel like that's a possibility. So sometimes I tap into the wisdom of a younger version of myself. And I think that I am still very much in relationship with my younger self in the way that I'm deeply grateful for all the work and the ways that she lived in the world to allow me to be who I am, but also the wisdom that we held in that space, and these girls on the court, these high schoolers who are dealing with such hard issues. I kept thinking, like, I hope they remember that bravery they felt. I hope they remember that sisterhood they feel, even in that young age, because that is often, what teaches us, what reminds us of ourselves, and I really value that. Yeah.
I love that reflection. I think about how we're born free.
Yes.
And how children are so honest because they haven't learned all of the things that we are trying now to unlearn as grown people, right? And they get to live with an audacity that we see that the young girls on the court being very audacious with each other, sometimes too far, but it's courageous. And also mental health, which is related to the next question. And Candrice, when I talked to you about this show, mental health is one of the first things that you brought up as one of the themes that really sit at the top for you. And April says a line, when Coach teaches her to public counseling, she says, public counseling, folks gonna think I'm crazy. Which I think it's really important to talk about mental health amongst Black communities, amongst Black women, amongst young people. And so for Candrice, I want to ask, why April's storyline, or how did April's storyline develop, and that focus on getting her some help at the end?
April, the character who is pregnant, who is trying to figure out whether or not she wants to go through with the pregnancy. And of course, she announces in the first quarter of the play she wants to get an abortion, and we see her go through struggling with the weight of that throughout the show, throughout the narrative. And one thing that I feel like, two things about that. One thing that I feel sometimes may not be factored into that situation, the situation of a young woman getting pregnant, and whether or not she struggles with the choice, just the idea of one's body carrying a child is such a shift in one's humanity. It's kind of obvious that, mental health, or therapy, is a necessary or should at least be considered to anyone who gets pregnant. Because, like I said, it's such a shift in one's humanity. And for April, and the traumatic, issues that she has, the things that she suffered throughout her life, I am familiar with that. Her story is my story. I didn't get pregnant when I was in high school, but I am a survivor of childhood sexual assault, and that is a part of my family's history. So, and the question for me so much growing up was, why don't we talk about it? And why is no one getting help? And then if someone does suffer a nervous breakdown, I didn't, but a family member, my closest family member did, I just couldn't figure out why no one knew how to help us. And so for me, with April in that situation, her most immediate need was not necessarily to decide whether or not she was going to go through with the medical procedure of an abortion, or if she was going to carry, out the pregnancy. It was, how was she going to get that help in order to deal with whatever choice she made, as well as the past trauma she had suffered. So, that's what led to that choice that I made for her narrative. And also, in the 90s, it's talked about a lot now, but in the 90s, mental health just was not talked about very often. And if someone did, in the area of the country where this play takes place, where I grew up, Southeast Arkansas, the Delta, there was not a lot of conversation about mental health, nor was there a lot of access to it, which is one huge theme in this play, is accessibility. So the outlets that did provide that access were very taboo. And, thankfully today, they're not as taboo. There's a thing now, well, back then it was like, you need Jesus. And today it's like, well, you need Jesus and therapy, but that thought just came into fruition within the past few years. So I really wanted to insert that into the conversation, especially for anybody who grew up in the 90s and still needs, or is wondering, do I need the help? And to know that, it's not taboo, and that, there are outlets out there, and just, to make it at least visible in this story. Yes.
It's so visible. And I love the shift that you named of, the question or the incident in the play of whether she's going to get an abortion or not, and then the shift to, let's focus on her well-being. Let's focus on who she is and whether she just feels capable enough to make any choice that feels good to her without all of the outside factors. Mahogany and Rachel, both of you are activists. Both of you are organizers and work in communities talking about systemic issues. And I wonder how you maintain and what your journey has been to maintaining your own well-being and your mental health through that process.
We can go on time. One of the things I really loved about this play is it reflected something that I've been thinking about so much. One, that speaking out loud to our friends is group therapy. Saying the truth, being vulnerable. It is, I say every time we speak our truth, we offer each other mental health support, to know that I'm not alone, to know that I'm not the only one, to know that other people go through hard or scary things. But also, I recently was in a writing workshop and they asked what our definition of community was. And my answer, particularly in this stage of my life, is seeing and being seen, the people who I can see and who see me. And those girls saw each other. They saw each other when they were at their best, and they celebrated each other. They saw each other at their worst, and they held each other accountable. But they stayed true to themselves and to each other. And that level of community and commitment, I can't discount that as mental health care. I can't discount that as spaces where people show up and say, how are you doing? Where's your mental? Let's hold ourselves and each other accountable. And so my own work in that right now is focusing on being true with my own vulnerabilities and allowing myself to be seen, allowing myself to stay soft, allowing myself to be criticized in loving ways from these people who I know care about me, but also to have the courage to speak to someone and say, "Are you well? You're making some decisions that aren't clear." The coach kept saying, "You need to be making clear decisions," and sometimes it's our friends who let us know when we're hazy, and because they're the people who know us. So I think that I'm really sitting in a space of I absolutely go to therapy. I absolutely have all of the other ways that I care for my mental health, but I think one of the most potent spaces right now is in community by seeing and being seen.
Thank you for that.
See, I knew she was gonna do it hazy. Hazy, okay, hazy. I'm checking in tomorrow. It's giving air quality index. You know, like I can't see you clearly. Can you see? Yes, Rachel. God, I love her. If I'm honest, so I had a lot of deaths also in this past year, and I have friends who are social workers, and they're always like, "Do you have a therapist?" And before the deaths, before the transitions, we had about 4 in 8 months. Before that, I was like, I don't have time. I also am doing poetry. I'm just making sure my daughter can have therapy. And then I was in a position where there was no longer, I couldn't run anymore. I didn't have my grandmother to run to. I didn't have my sister to talk about. It was like I had to sit in it and deal with it. And it was the Loveland group that started me on that journey of really digging deeper and looking into spaces that wouldn't make me feel judged. Because I do come from family members who's like, "Don't tell everybody your business. They gonna take your kids." And you're like, "But I'm sad." What am I supposed to do? Why? So at first I just thought if I work through it, it'll go away. And through the Loveland group, I think I got that residency to rest for 3 days. If you know anything about New York City living, someone just saying, "Here's a place to live for 3 days. There's nothing around. All you can do is sleep." Bruh. That was the beginning of an understanding. It's like lights on. And so then the therapy came soon thereafter, but it wasn't by choice. It was absolutely by necessity. And the unfortunate part is I kept shuffling towards it, but not walking with like purposeful strides. I would do meditation. I would do that for a little bit. I do yoga for like 6 months, and as soon as I feel better, I'm like, okay, I'm all right now. I'm good. I don't have to talk to nobody. Talking to people get on my nerves most of the time anyway. That's why I write poems, because the page don't talk back. It's quick. Turn the page, I'm done. But dealing with your feelings is forever. And once I was in that position where I couldn't turn away anymore, I couldn't write through it, I couldn't sleep it away, I couldn't cry it away. The therapy was this moment of aha, like this, and because it wasn't just therapy either, it was a grief support group, which is a whole nother set of voices. It was boundaries. I didn't have boundaries before. I just kept going and going and going. It was in therapy that I learned I could say no and it not mean I'm a bitch. It's no because I care about myself. And if you care about me, you'll accept this no, because if I could come through, I would. But if I can't, step off. So learning those things, and it had to happen in those sequences, because I thought one could not exist without the other, and now I'm learning I could not exist without all of them.
I want to say, yes, that was great. I just want to honor you and the way that you supported mental health in this space in one very particular way that I want to say out loud, that there are very few spaces, particularly in theater, particularly in places like the Lincoln Center, particularly in New York City, where when we go to theater as a Black girl who loves theater, and I come in to a space and there's so many white people, and so I step into a space and I say, how will I relate to this play? How will I experience the play in the midst of sitting around white people, knowing that it's my issues that are showing up on the stage? I'm so emotional. To sit in a space and know that so many people had no clue the joy we were feeling with the music, with the language, with the familiarity, with the church references, all of those things. It was meaningful in the ways that this was for us. No matter who else was in this crowd, this play was for us, so thank you for that.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I'm like sitting with it. I'm thinking about all of your answers in regard to mental health and therapy, and the shout out to the Loveland Foundation and the Loveland Group. Also, the first time I started therapy was on Loveland vouchers. Yes, yes, yes. And I'm thinking about, how therapy and all of just the decision to focus on mental wellness, on your own mental wellness, how for so many of us, the story is when it's at our breaking point. When we literally, it's life or death for some, right? And I'm thinking about the kind of open conversations that we can continue to have about mental health that allow people to access it sooner. That they don't wait until the last minute to reach out to the friend, to form community, to do all those things. So I just think that this is the beginning of having open conversations more and more, and people hearing that it doesn't have to be at the very last moment.
I'm so sorry. I also have to say that mental health is necessary for the good times too. Like even good things are hard. Transitions are hard. New jobs. I was thinking, the student who's getting recruited and knowing that they're leveling up from family members, and this that also is a need for therapy. It's a maintenance of self, not a rock bottom option. And we care for many things. We work out for our bodies, we care for our cars, we clean our homes, and it would be remiss for me not to do that for my mind. I would be remiss not to do that for my mind. And so I deeply encourage people to consider, how could I also have been supported through a good situation? Like the support isn't just it's there to help you be a fuller version of yourself, a more self-aware version of yourself, a kinder version of yourself. And that shows up not just when things are hard, but when things are really good and exciting too. That's all I want to say about that.
No, that's important. The maintenance of self. That's huge. We're in our last couple of minutes, and I want to turn to just a final question, which is really more like a prompt. Like, you might be inspired. Mahogany, you might give us a little poem. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't know. I'm just saying words. It's like Mahogany doesn't like to talk to people. She says, yes. So my last prompt, and you can think of the answer whether in short phrases or in full sentences, but I mentioned this word interdependence, and I want us to finish on it because I really think we see in the play, especially Stara, move from someone who is focused on independence and knows the power and the strength of independence, and slowly learns what it means to be interdependent and what it means to rely on other people and for them to rely on you and to give and take in that journey. So I just want to know what interdependence means to you. Again, short sentences, phrases, whatever is just like what comes up at the top.
I don't have a poem, so that's fine.
No poem from Mahogany, sorry y'all.
The thing that's coming up for me is that we cannot know ourselves without being reflected from others. And so the interdependence for me comes in recognizing that there are versions of me that I don't know yet until someone comes into my life and shows me and teaches me and combs me out and says, I see this in you, I recognize this in you, or I don't recognize this in you, what is happening right now? And so the interdependence is a kindness to ourselves and each other, a kindness to say, I see you and I see this and I want to help you expand into who you can be. And so I'm enjoying the idea of thinking of community, friendship, relationships, family as these ongoing moments to be kind in an effort to know myself better and to know them better.
For me, it's very similar to what you just said, and I think I'm thinking about how Sydney, one of the last things that she says to Star before the one-on-one is that she's a winner and not a competitor. And it's okay to be a competitor, but she says, I'm a winner, and if I see someone, one of my teammates has skills, I'm gonna build both of us up so that we can win. And so interdependence for me means, especially doing the type of work that I do, that we do in the arts, it's so easy to look at someone else and say, oh, wow, they have this thing that I don't have, or they're at this status that I'm not at. And I feel like I should be here, although I'm there. And the thing about it is, what I find more and more as I grow in community, whether it's art, whether I was an educator for 14 years, whether it was education, and even before then with basketball, it was how we lean in anything, how I've leaned on my sisters in order to grow, in order to learn, in order to grow, and how, my mom always tells me people come in your life for reasons and seasons. And sometimes, you hold on to people forever, they're lifelong companions, and sometimes you don't. However, you take whatever you learn from those individuals with you. And that interdependence is not just a moment thing. Even if you know a person for just a moment, it lasts forever. And it's, and it's in you and in whatever community you are in or whatever communities you go into forever. And it's about acknowledging growth, and acknowledging growth are others helping you grow. And I honestly think it's a very simple but beautiful thing. Because sometimes we might not want to acknowledge, oh, this person helped me learn this small thing, but they did. And you take that with you. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mahogany, close us out.
I'll keep it short because everything they said is yes, amen. Truly. So I would just say Gwendolyn Brooks said it best, that we are in the business of each other's harvest. Like, you doing good means that I do well, and me doing well means that you do well. So constantly being in service of each other's growth. That's interdependence.
Amen. Thank you all so much for joining us for More to Talk About. Give them a round of applause. Thank you all so much. Tell your friends about the show. Tell them to come see it, your friends, your family, your communities. We're going to have more and more to talk about. Thursday, July 27th, there is a WNBA night on August 8th, and then the last More to Talk About is on August 15th. So if you especially want to come on those days, that's fun too. Get home safe, everyone.